I've had so much fun this year talking about the big books with some of my booktube friends, from the just about 500 pages if you include the notes Shock Doctrine to the over 1,200 pages War and Peace. It's been really fun to explore these books in depth and to have live shows where we talk about them. I will leave all of that from last year linked in the cards above. We still have one live show to go. On the 7th of January I will be discussing Babel by R.F Kuang with Doz, whose information I will leave linked in the description. So if you haven't read it yet, I reckon if you've got some time off over the festive period, you can manage it. It's one of our shorter books, being around 550 pages, and it's been such a hyped book that I'm sure lots of you have read it already. So this is the final one for 2023, but today I'm here to talk to you about the books we are going to read in 2024. I'm planning to do it slightly differently next year. Instead of 6 books, I'm only going to do 5. This is because the end of the year here is quite a difficult time for live shows, for getting everything together, and I'm also quite burnt out from a lot of work stuff, family stuff, health stuff at this tail end of the year. So I'm going to take January not doing anything big project-wise. I'll still be here on YouTube, but I think I'm going to have a bit of a quieter January. So that means we're not going to have any book in January, and we're going to finish in November. So we still are going to be using 2 months for each book, because as they are so chunky, I think that is super important. The first 3 books I've already got planned, and I've got people on board to do that with me. The last 2 books I'm going to need your help for, so stick around after I've told you about the first 3 books to give me your opinions, thoughts, and everything else in the comments down below. So as I said, nothing in January. Our first book is going to be in February and March, and we're going to be reading a classic. So for February and March, our pick is East of Eden by John Steinbeck. Classics are chunky and they tend to be intimidating, and I think that makes them perfect for this book club, with the point of which is to read those books that intimidate you. East of Eden is an American classic set in California, in a valley, about 2 families at the beginning of the 20th century up through the First World War, and I think perhaps into the 1920s and the Dust Bowl situation, I'm not sure. But it follows these 2 families kind of playing on the themes of the fall of Adam and Eve and the story of Cain and Abel. And John Steinbeck is obviously one of the big luminaries of American letters. This is one of the great American novels, and I have only read his tiny book of Mice and Men, so I'm looking forward to getting into something chunky. And I'm going to be reading this one with Sophie, who I'm sure you know. I will leave again her information linked in the description. It will be interesting to read it as we are both not American, although Sophie grew up in America and lived in America, so she is more enmeshed in that culture than I am, but she is French, I am British Irish, so I think that will be interesting. And also all of those religious aspects, I think there'll be so much to dive into and to discuss. It is one that I saw a lot of people reading last year, so if you've read it before, feel free to reread or to join us without rereading. If you haven't read it, please take this as a sign that you should. And at the end of March we will be discussing John Steinbeck's East of Eden. Next we have a kind of historical fiction, which you know is one of my favourite genres. We will be reading The Love Songs of W.E.B. Du Bois by Honoree Fannone Jeffers. And this one I'm going to be reading with Ebony Kane. Again, her information will be linked in the description. I believe that Honoree Fannone Jeffers is a poet, and as both Ebony and I write poetry, I think this will be a great book to discuss between the 2 of us. This is another one that is American, this time set in Georgia, about a woman who realises she doesn't know much about her family's past and goes to discover more. She hears the voices of her female ancestors, and that is what pushes her towards discovery and to research and to uncovering the full history of her family in America. And so it has that generational family saga thing that I know a lot of people love, that is like Homegoing or Pachinko. It has those vibes, but in a slightly different way, a slightly different construction, I think. This is one that has been loved of so many people and one that I've heard so much about, so I'm definitely excited to get to that with Ebony. And then the third book I'm going to read is another well-loved favourite. This time it is our genre pick that we will be reading in June and July, and that is Jonathan Strange and Mr. Norrell by Susanna Clarke. And I'm going to be reading this with Milena from Milena Reads. Milena read War and Peace with me and Charlotte from Queenie Reads last year. She's the only person so far that I am bringing back because she said in that live show if I picked Jonathan Strange and Mr. Norrell she wanted to join in. So we are going to be reading that this summer. This is I'd say like a modern classic fantasy. I don't think it's that old, but it is definitely one that a lot of people are fans of. I think it has a TV adaptation, and it is set in 1806 in London, where the last of the magicians, the last of the practical magicians, is kind of wowing the scientific magic crowd when a young upstart, who is Jonathan Strange, comes along practicing magic as well. And their battle, their conflict there, the challenge that springs up between them mirrors the ongoing Napoleonic Wars, of which this is a contemporary. It's set during that time. So whilst it is a fantasy, and I am not a huge fantasy reader, it is a historical fantasy, which is slightly more, I think, in my comfort zone. Susanna Clarke also won the Women's Prize with Piranesi. She's a very well-loved writer, so I am looking forward to getting stuck into that. I think it's a great, like, beachy summer read if you like to read a big book, but it's like more plotty, more adventurous, and a bit more fun, I think, than some of the others that might require a little more focus and thought through. So those are our books for the first 3 months of the year. In February and March we will be reading East of Eden with Bibliosophie. In April and May we will be reading The Love Songs of W.E.B. Du Bois with Ebony Kane, and in June and July we will be reading Jonathan Strange and Mr. Norrell with Milena Reads. So that just leaves August and September and October and November. So in August and September I wanted to tackle a big book by a writer that I already have read from before and really enjoyed, and I have 2 of those on my shelf. So those are The Lacuna by Barbara Kingsolver and The Goldfinch by Donna Tarte. Both of these are beloved authors. Barbara Kingsolver won the Pulitzer this year and the Women's Prize for Demon Copperhead, and this is her novel set in Mexico in the 1930s about a man who is working as kind of a secretary for Diego Rivera and Frida Kahlo, and then Lev Trotsky arrives in their house and he gets swept up in this history of art and politics, Marxism in Mexico in the pre-war period, and I suppose the Second World War is coming, so that will probably hang over the book, I'm not sure. But I love Barbara Kingsolver's writing. I love her focus on place and the political, like the directly political nature of her writing. I think she is brilliant. Then we have The Goldfinch by Donna Tarte. I read The Secret History, but it was a long time ago, but I really loved it. But I've never dived into any other Tarte. I've owned this for a very long time. This one is about a young boy who loses his parents and he connects to his mother through this painting of a goldfinch, which draws him into a criminal underworld. Tarte writes kind of thrilling, plotty books, but with a lot of description, a lot of kind of close character detail and really immersion in the world, and so I think that's why they have such long books. I put it up on Instagram, a poll to see if my followers over there would pick one of these for me. If you don't already follow me on Instagram, it will be linked in the description, so do go over there because I do ask questions about this sort of thing over there. But that lot were completely useless. Once the poll finished, there was no decision made, so I need you in the comments to make a decision for me. Which one of these would you like to read in August and September? I'm planning to read both of them next year, but you will help me decide which one I'm going to talk about. And I haven't chosen a person to talk about I haven't chosen a person to talk with about these yet, although I do have someone in mind. So hopefully that will come through. But if you have anyone that you think would be good at discussing these, let me know that in the comments as well. And finally we have the October and November pick, and of course November is non-fiction November, so I wanted to include a non-fiction book in my list as well. So I asked for recommendations for this both on YouTube and on Instagram. I got several for big chunky non-fiction, and I made several polls for this as well. But again, we have not come to a conclusion. There are 2 books that have exactly the same amount of votes. And that is Red Comet, The Short Life and Blazing Art of Sylvia Plath, and The Earth Transformed, An Untold History. So they are 2 very different types of books. Comet is a very long history looking into the works and life of Sylvia Plath, who of course is one again of the great American writers of the mid-century, famous for The Bell Jar and her poetry, and she died tragically young because of her mental health struggles. And so this will be part biography, part look at her works. The World Transformed is by Professor Peter Frankopan, who wrote The Silk Roads and The New Silk Roads, both of which were very popular history non-fiction. And this is his most recent release, which came out this year, 2023. So it is a fairly new history book. This is about the history of the world through the natural environment. Groundbreaking historian reconnects us with our ancestors who worshipped, exploited and conserved the natural environment. He shows what the engagement with the natural world and the climatic change and their effects are on us now, exploring the development of religion, language and the relationship with the environment. So it is a broad-ranging history book with a focus on environmental studies and their relation to history through both religion, linguistics, culture, all of that sort of thing. So again, I need you to choose for me in the comments, would you rather read a big chunky biography of Sylvia Plath and her works, or a long-ranging history that looks at the world through an environmental lens? I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments down below, and again, if you have anyone you think would be particularly good for your choice, do let me know that in the comments and I will try and reach out to them, see if I can get them on board. Those are all of the books that we will be reading for the Big Book Club. If you would like to join us on the Discord, that will be linked in the description as well, where we can discuss these books as we go, as we are reading them. And I hope you will join us in reading these books next year. It's been so much fun this year, so I'm excited to give it a go again in 2024. Thank you for watching. Please remember to give this video a thumbs up if you liked it and to subscribe. I most of the time put out books twice a week, so I will see you again very soon. Thank you for watching. Bye!